One that existed for a girl born in a white family, one in a black family. They recently met through Chattanooga Connected and have been walking friends. On these walks, their stories unfolded, and they're sharing their stories with us today for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, Eleanor McCallie Cooper and Dolly Hamilton.
Thank you, Maria. As Maria said, this is our first time, so we're a little rusty. And we've been told to stand right here for the camera. So we're going to switch back and forth. And we've also got Bill Hicks staring at us with the time clock. So I go first. I was born in 1946 on the front wave of the baby boom, as the World War II veterans, like my father, returned to the home front. The Army decided to sell the former military housing at Fort Overthorpe to returning veterans. Now, since I've been with Dolly, I have learned to add one word to that sentence. The Army decided to sell the former military housing at Fort Overthorpe to returning white veterans. My father bought one of those duplexes on Barnhart Circle there at Fort Overthorpe, and our family grew from 5 to 6. Those early years were spent, among many other growing families, on the polo fields of the former 6th Cavalry. Now, my father had grown up on the McCallie School campus because his father and uncle were the founders of the school. But after college, my father decided not to teach at McCallie School, a private school for boys here in Chattanooga, as his brother and cousin had done. He wanted to do something else with his life. And as a young man, he worked at TVA, building the Norris Dam. But this wasn't promising work for a young white male who had an education, a college degree, unless he was an engineer. So after the war, radio was big, and my father decided to make it a career. He got a job in a radio station in Florida and moved his family. Now we were 7, all boys but me. When we took Sunday afternoon drives to get eggs in the country, we heard Dad's voice on the radio. That was a great thrill. He was in the car. His father, my grandfather, had given everything he owned, including his family home, founder's home, to McCallie School. And he told his sons that the only thing he had to give them was an education. The most valuable thing. But this only applied to the boys. All 4, later 5, of my brothers went to McCallie School tuition-free. And when we moved back from Chattanooga from Florida, I was in the 4th grade. I went to school at Normal Park. But when it was time for the 6th grade, I was told that I was going to GPS. I wasn't sure what that stood for, but I knew it involved girls. Because my great-aunt Grace McCallie and her cousin Eula Jernigan and their friend Tommy Duffy had all been teachers at City High School, and they founded a school for girls because Grace's brothers would not let girls come to their school. And Grace and her 2 teachers knew that more girls than boys wanted to go to college, so they started a school for girls in 1906. They took a big risk. They gave up a salary to create a school at a time when women couldn't vote or own property, and when married women couldn't teach school. However, unlike McCallie School, which was still led by the family, GPS was owned and run independently, not connected to the family, so my parents couldn't afford the tuition at GPS. I had to apply for a scholarship, and I went to GPS for 6 years on scholarship. I worked hard, because I didn't want those girls from Lookout Mountain to make better grades than I did. I knew I was as smart even if they had more money, and I was very conscious all those years of the divides in the community, mountain, valley, black, white, rich, poor. I worked hard, I made good grades, I played basketball. The schools were segregated. We never played a black team. None of the white schools had a black player on the team. In 1960, when Howard High School students led the sit-ins at Woolworths, I didn't hear about it. The only African Americans I knew were the maid who helped my mother and the yard man who helped my father. By the end of high school, I didn't know a single black person my age.
Before my mom and dad met and married, their lives were somewhat parallel. While they were still children, they each had to quit school and go to work to help support their families. My dad was skilled at working with his hands, so it didn't bother him too much. My mom, on the other hand, really wanted to get an education, and it bothered her that she was not allowed to finish school. My parents married and had a large family, 4 girls and 4 boys. They had 2 dreams for the family. One was to have a home, which my dad would build. The other one was to provide the opportunity for each child to receive a college education if they wanted it. However, as life would have it, their dreams were interrupted when one day my dad went to work and was tragically injured on the job. He was a lath and plaster carpenter, and he was working on a TVA project at Hell's Bar Dam when, in the performance of his job, he touched live wire and his body was electrocuted. The location where he was working is now called Hellstown. It is that beautiful body of water and land that you pass on the way to Nashville on Interstate 24. The year was 1953. I was 5 years old. The youngest child, who's here today, my sister Bella, was 21 months old, and the oldest was 17. They took a picture of my dad on the hospital stretcher. A sheet covered his body from below the waist down. His body looked like it had been grilled on a barbecue pit. He lived for 5 days in the hospital. He was 41 years old. Just like that, my mother was widowed with 8 minor children, an 8th grade education, and a $25,000 settlement from my dad's job. She was 39 years old. Before my dad's death, he had purchased land to build our home on, and my mom proceeded to have our home built with some of the money from the accident. Our house was on land that did not have a street. It just had a path made by car tire tracks. It was located in what was known as the Churchville community, and it intersected Holly Street near East 3rd Street. The Hamilton County Juvenile Court building now occupies the land where our home used to be. The street was called Holly Street Alley. It troubled my mom that her children would have to live in an alley. So she decided to ask a few neighbors to go to City Hall with her to see about getting the alley changed to the name of a street. It was the late 1950s, and although Jim Crow was technically outlawed in 1954, it was still very much alive. Black people just didn't walk into City Hall to ask for anything. Understandably, the neighbors turned my mother down. They said they were afraid to go with her. That should have been the end of the story, but it wasn't. The next morning, my mother dressed up and went downtown to City Hall. She walked into the building and asked to speak with Mayor Ojati. When they told her that she could not, she replied that she was a brand new taxpayer and it was urgent that she speak with the mayor. And guess what? Mayor Ojati agreed to see her. She explained to him that my dad paid the ultimate sacrifice while trying to make it possible for his children to have a home and that living in an alley was not the end result they had dreamed about. The mayor listened to her story and told her that he remembered my dad's accident. He asked for the person in charge of public works to come to his office, and together they looked through a binder of street names. I can still remember my mom telling us what happened in the mayor's office that day. She asked if the alley could be named Cameron Street, since Cameron was our surname. But the public works person explained that Cameron was already taken. They decided on the name Cadiz Street, spelled C-A-D-I-Z. My mom thanked the mayor and prepared to leave. But before she left, she mentioned that the property was very dark at night because there was no street light, and she feared for the safety of her children. As she left the mayor's office, he thanked her for coming and again extended his condolences. The story should have ended there, but it didn't. A few days later, huge trucks, as Trump would say, huge trucks, rolled down our alley. The trucks came and went for several days, dumping large piles of dirt and gravel. When they finally finished, we had a smooth road that was paved with dirt, tar, and gravel. We had a street light almost right in front of our house. And we had a brand new sign at the entrance of the street that read, Cadiz Place. We children didn't like the sound of Cadiz, so we gave it a French flair, and we called it Cadiz Place. We thought, why not?